Good morning, everyone. My name is Mildred, and I am the consultant and developer of the system. Welcome to this training session. This is module 1 of the end users training, and this module just covers looking at the different roles for the virtual training workshop portal. To just give an overview for those that have not been part of this system from the beginning, the case-based surveillance system consists of 2 different systems and an API. We have the patient management and reporting system and the virtual training workshop portal. Now, when you logged on this morning to join the session, you were using the virtual training workshop portal. The other account we are going to create from the 3rd week is for the patient management and reporting system, where you log in to create client accounts and to record information about screenings and management. These 2 accounts, while they are on the same system, they're actually different systems working together. The login for the virtual training workshop portal will not log you into the patient management and reporting system. You are welcome to use the same email address and password for both systems, but the logins are different. We are handling the virtual training workshop portal for module 1 and module 2, and for this module 1 for this week we are looking at 2 roles of this portal. We have the developer role and the facilitator role. Now, there is this confusion that always goes on when we say the training portal. Most times we have this confusion and people think we're talking about the pilot system, which is the training system, the learn site. There are 2 different things. When you want to have a schedule for training workshop, you want to have a virtual training and you want people to be able to take assessments or have a schedule to join without having to share Zoom links, you want to share notes and discussions, you want everybody to have an account for maybe for educational continuity or whatever it is that the way it is structured within each country. Then you want everybody to have a virtual training workshop access, the portal access, so that when you have in country, like for the super users and supervisors that are here, you have a training workshop to be conducted. You want a portal where everybody knows what training workshop they have, when they are scheduled to have a session, and also when you want them to take assessment after the workshop to see where they're at before and after the workshop, especially if you need a form of certification and you want to have any kind of assessment for you to be able to verify that the participants are able to do it. Now, for the case-based surveillance system, it is important to certify users because the whole goal is to get data. Now, while we talk about getting data, meaningful data is what we actually need. We talk so much about data, but we can have all this data and the data will become useless if we are not collecting the meaningful information. Now, the case-based surveillance system is tailored to just get the useful information. Everything you find on the system, every field of information you're supposed to fill in are useful for reporting and are also useful for whatever decision making that needs to be taken. Although it might look hectic and look like, why do we have to fill all these forms? There is no shortcut to doing things properly. Once it has to be done well, it has to be done well. It's still faster and less tedious than paper, but you'll find yourself spending at least 15 minutes per client collecting all the required information, especially when it's a first-time client. And then for subsequent clients, it will now be faster because all you need to do is just updates and record new screening results. But the first time, you need to collect risk information, you need to collect personal information and all of that. So the virtual training workshop portal consists of 4 different modules. We have the developer, we have the facilitator, we have the participant, and then we have the guest. This week we are looking at the developer and the facilitator. Now, who is a developer for the virtual training workshop portal? Now, when we say developer, we just mean just like the admin person who controls user account creation, who creates training workshop for different facilitators. Within the countries, the people who are developers are like the program managers or the supervisors that are in charge of organizing training workshops. So let's say you want to invite a facilitator to conduct or facilitate a training, then you are the developer now who logs in to create that training on the system so that the facilitator can now configure the training by creating sessions, adding participants and all that. The developer is also the one who creates the accounts for all of the facilitators and everybody who is going to use the virtual workshop training portal. The virtual training workshop portal uses role-based access to authenticate users and to grant access to all the functionalities of the assigned role. So when you log in, you will be welcome to the home page of your assigned role. Your role was assigned at the time of creation by your supervisor who created the account. Everybody present here is assigned the role participant, and that's why you can see a participant dashboard where you can see your schedule and you can see all the functionalities that dashboard has to offer. I will log in with an account that makes me a developer, and then we'll look at the functionalities of the developer. Now take note that at the end of this training workshop, there will be an assessment for those who are just attending today and tomorrow's session. The assessment will be there on the page, and then you'll be required for reporting purpose to just try it out. It's not an assessment that is used to produce your certificate or anything. It's just for us to know the impact of the training, where you were at, or where you are at the time of the end, and to understand how to inform the master trainers or the in-country trainers on what topics to keep training on, just for the sake of continuity. And now, because we know that this is the handover phase, this is the opportunity for countries to get all of the information about case-based, because the handover is going in country, and most of the time you ask questions, you might not have as much response as you have now, especially when this handover is done completely. So I'll log in as a developer. And the developer of the system has two major functionalities. One is to create users' accounts and manage the accounts, and the second is to create training workshop and then be able to overlook the facilitator and the participant schedule and activities on the system. So while it is named developer, it does not mean it is a programmatic thing or someone who comes to do some technical stuff, just like an admin person or a super user for the virtual training workshop platform. So to create a user, you come to the pages menu on the left side of the screen, and you select users and accounts submenu, and then under that submenu you have create and manage users. So I try to name the links to just closely relate to the functionality, so that even without so much training, you'll be able to navigate. Well, at the end, there'll be a training manual that you actually find. So you have create and manage users. This is where all of the users' accounts are created. On the left side, we have a little form here where we'll fill in the first name, the last name, the email address, and select a role from the 4 roles for that user. When we click on create user, what happens next is that an email is sent to the email address that was specified here. We'll get a success message. The person receives an email with activation link. When the activation link is clicked, the person gets a form to set their password. Now, because of the encryption type used, can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Lester, I think the problem might be from your end because my mic is on the highest volume. Okay, so someone left the comments in the chat to increase the volume of the mic, and I think I'm on the maximum volume, so that's why I asked. Okay. So the encryption type for those who were at last week's training workshop encrypts or de-identifies any sensitive information. While we can see these email addresses and names on the interface, it is encrypted before it is presented, but the back end in transit and storage, it is encrypted. And we looked at that last week. You can actually refer to the recordings for last week if you just want to know about it if you were not there. So you create this account, and then on the right side of the screen, we can manage the account. Maybe you need to change the person's name because by default, the names are in lowercase. I can decide I want to make these names in uppercase, and what I'll do is just to come to the names and try to change the capitalization, and then I'll edit. And if I want to delete a user, I can click on delete. So we'll go through creating a user. Now again, I'm going to recap this again just so that there will be no confusion. When you are a super user, a program manager, a supervisor in the country, and there is a training workshop to be facilitated virtually, you have the virtual training workshop portal, and on the landing page of your site, so the sites for the countries is not going to be this site we are using. cbs5.mildredgroup.com is just for the general training. Each country have their own system on your own country site. So this is not where you'll be creating your account. Your account will be created on your country site. And I think Output 3 report gives you the IT that actually created the domain names have all of the domains for your site. So you'll find the names for your site in your Output 3 report that you will go to. Here you'll find patient management and reporting system login, and we'll have virtual training workshop portal login. It is important for you to click the correct login link. Now, I can't say enough, more than half of the people in the training workshop have decided to log in here for the training workshop, and I've decided to keep sending emails on how they're getting wrong details, and do not pick up that these logins are different. We also use color code for you to know that if you don't see a green banner here, then you are not on the correct training workshop portal because this is white. Also, in the emails that were sent out, the correct login link for this page was sent. But then we still have people having that mistake, which means that as supervisors, we are going to have problems like that within the countries. And so we know one of the frequently asked questions, or one of the most, what do we say now? One of the most errors that users will encounter, and you as supervisors will have to know these errors and know the solution. As soon as anybody keeps telling you that I'm getting wrong details on login, just ask them, are you on the correct login page? If they say yes, you want to copy the link here for this login and send to them if it's for the patient management and reporting system, or you want to copy the link here and tell them to log in through this link because they have to be on the correct login link. Now, we know generally our human nature is that people do not read instructions. It might be right in front of them, they will not read it. You have to keep saying it and say, can you please use exactly what is on the instructions? So this is one of the problems you encounter as a supervisor, and you need to have the answers to these questions when the participants or users run into problems like this. Whenever the problem is system failure, contact your administrator. That is when you have to contact an external person. Throughout this warranty period up until I think June 2025, you can send me an email when you have system failure. Anything apart from system failure is a user-generated error. It has nothing to do with the system. That means the user did not read an instruction, enter the wrong field or something. During the training workshop for Module 3, we're going to see the different error codes, and there's also going to be an error manual at the end where you can just have a reference to say if this particular error happens, it just means that the system crashed, maybe the database field were not filled in correctly. If this particular error happens, the user is entering the records wrongly. So you won't have to have these issues of this is having errors, because we've had a lot of errors that are user-generated errors based on the fact that there are certain instructions that were there and it's just right there in front, and still they just want to fill. So we know the normal human nature is, and all of us are guilty of that, where we have a whole, we try to install something or we try to register for something, there'll be a whole user terms and agreements. All of us just click I agree. Nobody has time to read those things, and nobody wants to read them. And we just click I agree and we just sign and we move on. Then we have an error and we now try to go back to look at those things, or people will still not go back to read what it is that they just signed. We just sign and move on. So we know that it is in our nature not to read instructions. And so you need to know these instructions as supervisors to know the answers to give users when they run into errors that they generate by themselves. Okay, does anyone have questions before we start the demo? Okay.
I got you.
All right. So we have the virtual training workshop portal. You click on the login here. We even have it here also. It is because of this same error and not reading the instructions that we have it on both places, so that people will be able to say, okay, maybe I'm on the wrong page. So we'll come here and log in. As a developer, and then we come to this developer page. Now, before your servers are updated, if you notice, some of the things you will find here are not even on your live systems yet, but because we want to have the workshop this week, and then we know that there is no error to be corrected, we update that part and close that part of the development. We're going to change the color codes. Now, there's an ADA guideline that we have to stick to, which caters for different kind of disabilities, color blindness and different things, and also for different learning disabilities, so that when you have users, and sometimes we make these mistakes that although most users are healthcare workers, does not mean that they are immortal or excluded from having issues or any kind of disability. So there'll be different color codes for different things, and the color codes will keep to the guidelines for color blindness and different kind of disabilities for internet use, so that if the person can actually not read and see developer, you can tell them the red banner, you're on the red page. So things like that. Those color codes will also have manuals that will help. So what we are doing is trying to make sure that it's like forward thinking. In the long term, the next 10 years, you will not need any updates to the system, because it has kept to guidelines and rules and even things that are in the works for standards to be kept to. So when you log in as a developer, you have access to creating users. You also have access to managing users' accounts. You have access to viewing when the user logged in, who has logged into the system, who has activated the account. And then you'll be the one responsible for creating training workshops. Let's have a hypothetical scenario where we have a new system that we have implemented. And this system consists of, let's say this system consists of 3 different modules. Or we have 3 different types of stakeholders, right? And the stakeholders are in 3 different cross-functional teams. Let's say the first team is like the technical team, and then we'll have the second team that will be like the okay, let's say the training workshop is for, let's say, pharmacy technicians, for instance. So the first will be technical team, IT. The second set of people will be the pharmacist, right? And let's say we'll have the third set to be maybe let's add the doctors that write the prescription. Let's have this hypothetical scenario. So the system consists of 3 roles. So let's say it's just a hospital prescription system, for instance. So we have the technical role, the pharmacist role, and the doctor role, 3 roles. We want to have a training workshop for this system. And as the supervisor now, you are tasked with organizing this training workshop. You get the facilitator, you work with the facilitator to get the dates for the training that they want to do. All you need is just the date of the training, and then you come here and you come to create training, and you create a new training. So this training title now might just be one broad heading for what the training will be. Let's say the name is prescription electronic prescription system. So let's put the training to be electronic prescription system. Now, the facilitator has told you that the training workshop will run from the first Monday in October to the last Friday in November. So we'll come to say the first Monday in October is 4th of October, and the last Friday in November is going to be 29th of November. So this is the duration of the training. That's all you have to do as a supervisor or the developer, is to put the duration of the training workshop. You can have one broad training like this, or you can have this training in different groups. So let's say you want to have technical training this month, and then to take you 2 months again to have training for pharmacists, and another 2 months to have training for doctors. Instead of having one broad training, you can decide to say the first training is going to last 1 week, is for technical. You can just change the title to technical training and then put the duration for 1 week. There are many ways you can use the system to set up. It's just flexible as you want to do it. What you need to take note of is, if you're having one broad training that covers all the different modules of the training, then you want to take note of the start and end dates, and know that the start date will be the start of the first module, and the end date will be the end of the last module of the system, of the training workshops. So let's say this is the structure we want to use. We want to have one broad heading where installing a prescription, an e-prescription system, where we want to be able to track all the medications that are given out. We want to be able to track, or maybe there's this case of a prescription of a particular controlled drug. So they want to be able to track all doctors and the prescriptions that they have given out and all of those things. So there's this electronic prescription system, and then the users are the IT, which is the technical part, the pharmacists and the doctors. And then we have the training now, and now create training. Okay, so once you have created a training, this is the only job you have to do as a developer concerning training workshop. Then you have to create the users. The users now are going to be all of the people that are participants in the training. You want to get their names and their email addresses. That's all you need. You also want to have knowledge of their role. So if the account you are creating is going to be the facilitator, the first account you want to create is for the facilitator of the workshop. And so let's say I want to create an account for the facilitator. Let me put my name. And email address. I'll confirm the email. And then now I'll select the role. It's going to be one of the 4 roles. So I have to select facilitator as the role for this user and click on create user. Let's assume that I want to be a participant, not a facilitator. Then I'll change this to participant. Okay. So now let's configure this as a facilitator. I'll click on create user. So this should now give me a message at the top which says success. You must see this green banner with a success message that the user should go to this email address and activate. I'll come to the email which is logged in here, refresh and wait for my email to come in. I see an email saying OECS eCBS training portal. I'll see it and I'll click here to activate. Sometimes this email goes to the spam, so you have to tell your users that they should check their email or check their junk or spam messages for an email with the subject OECS eCBS training portal. Then they should click on the link to activate, and this gives them a password setting place where you set your password the first time. The mistake a lot of users have used, and I'm mentioning these mistakes because as the supervisors, when you have people who come with these problems, you should know the answer. The mistake they make is they click activate, they don't set their password. They come here to reset password. You see this code that's here? This is the code that is used to identify the row of information whose password you are setting, the user's account whose password you are setting. Once you click on reset password before you even activate your account, then your supervisor will likely have to delete the account and recreate it again, because at this point it will keep telling you wrong details because the code does not match any code for activation because you have reset it without setting a password. So we'll set a password. So users have to remember the password that they set. There is no magic you can perform as a supervisor to know the password they set. Even if you have access to the database, these things are encrypted. Only the person who set the password will always know the password. There is no way for the system to know what password they set. There's no way for you, the supervisor, to retrieve their password. It is not possible on this system. So sensitive information remains with the person who created those information. So all they will need to do is to reset that password. You can do nothing about they forgot their password. So we'll click on continue, and then to say your account is now activated. So this is what you tell your users. When they go to the activation link, click on it. They need to give them a password setting field. They set the password. It now redirects them back to log in now. So let's log in to see. And then if at this point the person has set the password and forgets it, this is where to reset the password on the same login link for the virtual training workshop portal. It must have a green banner for them to know that they are on correct login form. And then you click on login. If it is successful, you are welcome to the home page. Now, this facilitator has no training, has nothing. So you see the home page, there is nothing here. This is the new account we just created. So I'm going to log back in with this account, but I'm going to illustrate back the developer. So I'm going to go back to login back as a developer. So assuming a user has a problem with the account, let's say the account I just created, the user has a problem. N is for not activated, Y is for activated. You can come here and change it from not activated to activated. If they have a problem with the link or they complain that they have not received the link, you can activate it manually for them. Then you now ask them to reset their password. If a user does not receive the activation link in their mail or cannot find it, or for some reason have problem with activation, what you can do as a supervisor is to come back to the users and account here. On the form on the right, you want to look for that user's email address. You can just type it in for it to search that address. Look at under the status column. You want to change it from not activated to activated, and then ask them to click on the reset password link on the login page to create a password for themselves. So when you have users that try to reset before activation and it crumbles, you can either delete the account or manually activate it for them and ask them to reset password. Okay, this process only applies to the virtual training workshop platform. It will not apply to the patient management and reporting system. The reason is this: users must receive an activation email for that. They must sign a confidentiality agreement which comes through the activation, and you cannot manually do that for them. You need them to sign that confidentiality agreement form, and that is why it is not possible for you to do the manual activation, because they have to accept the confidentiality agreement before they use the system. So this whole process of manually activating only applies to the virtual training workshop platform. Does anyone have questions? So is it clear? Is it straightforward?
Yes, it is, Major.
Okay.
So you will know when we start using it and setting up.
Okay, yes. Yeah, we're going to have a hands-on session for tomorrow. We're going to have hands-on, and then during the hands-on practice, we'll be practicing it with your own country site to try it out for tomorrow's session. So because Monday did not hold, we're trying to combine Monday and Tuesday today, so that on Wednesday tomorrow you can have the hands-on session, and on Thursday we can repeat for those who were not able to join for today's session. So we have the users and accounts functionality, and that's all about it. If you want to view users, or you want to print users for any reason, or you want to see if they've activated their account successfully, this is where you come to see who has activated and who has not activated. So when a user tells you things like, I received the email, I have activated my account but I can't log in, you can actually check if they really did activate the account before you'll be able to help them further. You can also filter this by just clicking on the column name here for it to sort things out. So you can sort out by anything you want. You want to see all those who have not activated, you just click on this to sort out. So we use those methods to make it easier for you, and you can also search to find out if an account was created. So if somebody says, for instance, I don't have access, I'm not seeing it, it's saying wrong details, you want to first see if the person has an account, and when you start typing you find that the accounts are there, and then you want to see who activated and who did not activate. And if they're not activated, they need to check their email for the activation link or their junk folder, and if they say they cannot find the activation link, you can either manually activate and ask them to reset their password, or you can just delete that account and recreate it for them to get that email. So we looked at how we created the training. We can come here to view Facilitator to see that to see all of the schedule for the different facilitators. Here you can see the different email address for the facilitator and see what they have configured and what sessions and the dates for the sessions and the time for the different sessions that exist. So that's what you can do as a supervisor. When the facilitator say we are ready to go, our training is for tomorrow, you can actually come and view the facilitator schedule without asking them to send it to you to see the date and time. If you need to send out emails to participants, or you need any form of approval from a higher person, you know the different session days, date, and the time for each of the sessions. You can also view participant schedule, because the facilitator is going to add participants to the different sessions that they created. So like we had a spreadsheet that you had to fill in your different session times, especially that we used this structure in 2022 where we had the training last almost 3 months, but we had the different sessions broken down in little bits and different repeats, so everybody will have an opportunity to participate, and it's not going to be fixed to a time where people will not attend. So if you miss one day, you know the repeat day for that particular one is there. And then we have YouTube videos that exist there forever. I think if you go back to the same channel where you found the videos for last week, you'll still find all of the training workshops that have happened since 2022 there for you to review whenever you need to get extra information. So you can view the participants here by selecting the training. So let's say this training is end user and get list. So if you send me a message to ask me when do I have trainings, I can't log into your portal to find out. I can just come here to type your email address or your name, and then it now brings out your email, and I'll see the email of who I want, and I can just see all of your sessions and say you have a training on 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. These are your sessions, or you can just print it out and send it to the person if you want to. Okay, so the developer can do all of this. The developer is the supervisor. You can actually see what the user's schedule for the trainings are, so that if you need to assign, let's say a nurse, for instance, needs to be on duty at a particular time, so you can say, okay, this person has a training from 9 to 12, and so it can be on afternoon duty. This other person cannot be on afternoon because the training session is on afternoon, so you can use this to know they have trainings at this time. This person will not be available for this task. I need to assign somebody else. You can view the schedule of each participant that relates to your facility there. Does anyone have question? Hello.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to. So, with the setting up of the schedules, is it possible to set up the rooms and you assign each client, each participant to a room rather than in this schedule?
Yes. So, but that's not the function of the developer role. The developer only creates the training. What the developer sees, view facilitator, view participants, are things that the facilitator have done. The facilitator configures the training. The developer can only view what the facilitator have configured. So now we can see it here because the facilitator has already configured all of this training. But we're going to look at now the facilitator page and see how the facilitator does all of these things for the developer to be able to view.
Understand.
Okay. Any other person? Okay, so the second role that we're going to look at today is the facilitator role. This is where all of the heavy lifting happens. The facilitator depends on, I'll log in with a facilitator that already has configuration, then log in with the new one we created to configure a new system. Well, okay. So the facilitator of a system logs in and is welcome to the home page. When that facilitator has trainings already configured, then we'll see things like start session. You click to start a session and people will be able to join. Normally, this session, when we create sessions, is we provide a link. So if you are going to be using Google Meet, you're going to be using Zoom, whatever you're going to use, you provide the link for that meeting room while you are creating the sessions, and then automatically you are able to start the sessions without having to go to that site. It just redirects you to the site. So we did it this way so that you will not be tied to any one platform. When you want to have video conferencing or any conference meeting, you can decide to use any password you want. Now it's not going to be beneficial to actually have our own video conferencing created, so better we use what is already in existence, and so you can create all of your meeting rooms on Google or on Zoom or whatever and set it up. Now, how is this set up? When the facilitator logs in, we have two drop-down menus. One drop-down menu is to configure the training and everything about the training workshop. The other drop-down menu is to configure assessments and every assessment for the trainings. The home page here holds all of the sessions. It only holds sessions for the current dates and future dates. When we come here tomorrow, we will not find anything about today here. because they said that date is already passed. You only see the next thing you have to do in order of their start date. So when I come in the morning and I don't find anything here, it means I have no session to facilitate. So I will log in with the new account we just created as a facilitator. So we'll configure this and see it. So now this is the new facilitator. This facilitator has no training configured. The facilitator is supposed to configure a training. The first thing the facilitator would do is to come here and create training session. Now, there are many ways you can do this, but I'll tell you the most straightforward way you can use the system. The developer has created the training workshop. The facilitator is now to take that training workshop and create sessions for the training. So let's say typical training is a 5-day training, Monday to Friday, just once. And whether or not you are going to be using a virtual training, if you just want to have an organized platform for everybody to know their schedule before they come in for the training, even if it's face-to-face, you can still use this. And you want to look at a session as a topic in the training, right? And then the rooms has the different groups of people that will attend the sessions. I don't know if that makes sense. So you can
repeat that, please?
So you want to look at the session as a topic for the training, right? So we have this training workshop. We have a particular training session that we want. So we have a training workshop, we say electronic prescription system. We want to have a session for this training workshop. And let's say we want the technical session name should be, let's say, technical. Because now we say we have 3 different types of stakeholders that we are going to be training. So we want to create this session for the technical people that will train. Then we'll create a session for the pharmacists and a session for the doctors. So within this session, if within the technical session, we want to have different groups of people attending in the morning and people attending in the evening, then we have different rooms for them. So on the system, the facilitator creates the session, which is like a topic under the training, and then set up rooms for that session, which is going to be, maybe you want repeat days, you want them to be in different groups. The rooms are just like different groups of people that maybe exist concurrently or at different times or have different modes of joining, but there are different rooms within the session. So let's say we want to create a session called technical, and this technical belongs to the training electronic prescription system. There are different trainings here, so you can have this system within the country used by the different, not just HIV, used throughout the Ministry of Health. And then maybe we'll say the diabetes clinic wants to do a training, right? They will have their own training that they created. So you see a list of different trainings. You need to know the name of your training. Electronic prescription system is the system you are training for. The developer already created this, so you can see all of the trainings that are there, and you want to choose the training you are creating a session for. So let's say this training is going to start from 9 a.m. and end at 4 p.m. You want to put the start time to be 9 a.m. and the end time to be 4 p.m. and then you create this session. So we can create a second session now, which is going to be pharmacist. And then the session belongs to the training electronic prescription system. It starts at 9 a.m. and it ends at 4 p.m. And then we have the third session, which is, let's call it doctors. And this starts at 9 a.m. also and ends at 4 p.m. So we've created all the different sessions we want. We know that the times for the sessions are 9 to 4. We want to create rooms. So what we've done here with the session time is like these sessions will run between 9 and 4. How we break the 9 to 4, whether we're going to have one group from 9 to 10, another one from 10 to 11, 11 to 12, now is done under creating of the session rooms. So let's say this room name is going to be room 1 technical. So I'll just name it so that you know what session this room belongs to. But then associated session will now become technical. You click the name of the session. But I put room 1 technical because the names of the room must be unique. So if I put room 1 and somebody else is configuring another session called room 1, it will not accept this because it's not unique anymore. So sometimes you want to prefix or suffix the name of your room with the name of the session or the training, just so that you can know exactly this is the name of my room. The convention I chose to use is to create a name, and then I will put a suffix that associates that room with either the session or the training module. And now, so it is when you configure the room that you actually select the date. This is the one that the participants see, like you see on your own. You know the date of the training, you know the time you start and the time you end. And then this is where you provide the link, meeting link. If it's for Zoom link, if it is for Google Meet, any link you have created a meeting for, you put those links here so the participants will see it on their page. So let's say this training session is going to be for the 27th, and it's going to start at 8 a.m. and then it's going to end at let's say 12 noon. Then let's get a live link for this. So let's say for this training we want to have a link. I'll just copy any meeting link here, and I'll come here to put the link, the Zoom link, and I'll copy a password here, and I'll come here and put the password. So this is how you create the room. So this will now have that join live link that you see at the top, join live. Now this room is created. Not all participants will see this on their page. Nobody is going to see this at this point. You just created a room at a time. You can create another room and say room 2 technical, and you want to say it's associated to the technical session. The date might be the same date, but now the time will change. Let's say 1 p.m. to let's say 5 p.m. So this is going to be a different group now. Let's say we want to use the same link for that second session and the same password here, and I'll create. So now we have 2 rooms. Let's stop at 2 rooms. You can create all the rooms for all of the different sessions that you've had. So it's not fixed to having 2 sessions a day, 2 different groups a day. You can have 10, you can have 20. You can group people based on different groups. Maybe you want to have, just as you have in Zoom, you have breakout rooms where people come and participate and do hands-on training all at once. So those kind of stuff. Now we have created a room. The next thing you want to do, now take note that these links are arranged in the order in which you should follow to do things. You create the session, you create the rooms. Now you add attendees to that training. So what room do you want to add each participant to? You have to select the room here. So room 1 technical, and I'll select room. So now it gives you the list of every user that has not been added to this particular room. So once you add a user, the user will not be part of these options. So you have to look at the different users for it. If you need to set them, maybe the list is too long, you can just control find and maybe type the name of the person, let's say, and then it will highlight all of the names of that person for you to select the person to be added to a particular training room. Okay, just so that we don't have confusion with your schedule, I'm not going to add any of you to this hypothetical room. I'm going to add myself to the room so that we can see that later on. Okay, so when you select all the users, let's say I add myself there, and let me add some of my stuff to hypothetical creation so that we can just be able to view these things. So once you select all of the people you want to add to this room, always know that it's room 1 technical. These are the people that come from 8 to 12 noon. So we want to add these ones here. We'll come here once we're done and we'll click add participants. So we added participants. Now those people who have been added are no longer on the list here. So you can keep adding more. You can click on one add, you can click on several and add. So I want to now look for, let's say, room 2 technical, and now I want to see who to add. If I want those people to attend both morning and afternoon, so sometimes you have morning session, which is a different topic from the afternoon session. Afternoon might not be repeats. You want the same people to come back after the 1 hour break, you can still add them to the second room. So it allows you to be able to add people. There are some training workshops that I have facilitated in the past that people just want to come for the repeats, come for all the sessions available so that they can learn it over and over again, especially for those who are master trainers. So I advise, if you're a supervisor or a master trainer within a country and you have the time, you can attend repeated sessions again just to solidify your knowledge on it, because if you don't have confidence or you don't know something properly, you will not be able to pass on that knowledge. So the more number of sessions you attend, the more clear it will become, and the more you will have questions that you want to ask to be able to understand how to do it. So every country has a pilot site where you can test exhaustively. You can continue to create new things. What I will do is, before the training, maybe at the end of this training, I will send the link again for the pilot site. That's your learn site, your in-country learn site, for you to practice all of these on. And that is the same learn site we're going to have our practice tomorrow. And the supervisor said you'll be the ones to create the account yourself. Yes, Lester?
So another question. If, for example, we have a training going on, like how you just explain.
Yeah.
Well, that you're explaining it is for every training, you can decide who you want to send into a room, right?
Yes.
Let's say you're having a training, but you want to make breakout rooms. Does the same rule apply?
You said?
That? If you want to make breakout rooms, for example, in the training that you have going on,
yeah,
does the same rule apply? So you have, let's say, 15 persons, but you want to do breakout rooms during the training that you're having at the point of time.
Yeah, it's the same, exactly the same rule applies. So anything that has to do with breaking people into groups, you put them in a room, in a particular room. So you create rooms for each of those things. Now, note that this system does not have the functionality of facilitating a workshop. You will use a link to an external or third-party place like Zoom or Google Meet to actually have that workshop. So when you are there and you still want the video conferencing to have breakout, it is from those apps like Zoom that you create your breakout rooms. But if you want to disseminate information, send manuals or so to different groups of people within the same training, you create the rooms here. So this is more like a platform for more organization or management of training workshops, and for people to have their schedule, have assessment, but does not have functionalities for actually having video conferencing. So do you understand?
Okay.
Yeah. So you add your participants to unlimited number of rooms. You can add the same participant to different rooms, to all the rooms that exist for the same session, depending on what you want to achieve with the training workshop. Okay. So this is how we configure a training. You create the session for a training that the developer has already created. You create rooms for the session that you have created. You add attendees to the different rooms that you have created. And if you added somebody in error, you can come here to remove. All you do is just click on the delete button here, but you click on remove attendees from training. You can filter for the training you are looking for. Let's say I'm looking for room 1 technical, and I want to remove somebody from the training. The person has reported that that time is not okay, and you don't want their schedule to look conflicting. You can just delete. Sometimes again, when you don't have information of on what session people will want to attend, then you can put everybody under one session, and then they can choose to attend all the sessions or under all sessions, and then they'll choose which one is convenient for them. So the configuration is flexible depending on how you want to do it. Once you have finished creating, for instance, for you, Lester, now, for instance, I want to see exactly your schedule where you have been placed in the training. Because I am not the creator of this training, end user, I will never be able to see the list of my participants, what my participants are doing. That is just going to be the functionality for the facilitator that created. Now, this end user was created by a different facilitator. We can't see the list of that person, but we can see a list of what has been created by the current facilitator that is logged in. So the security control here is, once a facilitator has configured a training and added participants, only that facilitator and the supervisor, which is a developer, can actually view the participants of that, the schedule of the attendees of the training. While during the time we were looking at the validation, most of you have said that we want the facilitator of one training to be able to do these functionalities, and it should not be tied to just the facilitator that created. But things like viewing the attendee schedule, we have limited it for security purpose to just the person who created the schedule and the supervisor, and not any facilitator at all, because you won't want anybody to be able to move things around that you have already configured based on your own schedule. So the view attendee schedule, you can only view attendees of your own training workshop and not of another facilitator's training workshop. Now these have attendees, but they are for another facilitator. If I log into that facilitator, we'll see we can view So we'll now see here that we cannot view the attendees for the electronic prescription system, because this facilitator did not create it. But we can view the one for end users now, because this is the facilitator for that training. So if I say, for instance, I want to get the I want to look at all of the schedule for a particular person. So let's say I want to see the day you have. I type your name and it comes out to see the email address that was used to register you for each of the training, and then the day you have trainings for the week. So you can now see that. And so in the events that maybe the supervisor or a particular participant for some reason just wants to have their schedule for this, you can actually export this, you can print this, you can see that. Or you want to search for the purpose of verifying when that participant is having trainings, you can type the person's name to see their days and their time for their different training workshop for the week. Now take note that the schedule for this week is the only one we have done, and then we'll do again next week, because we don't want people to forget. So we want them to get an email prior to the training to remember that they have training. So that's why you only find schedule for this week. For module 2, 3, 4, 5, the schedule is not set yet until the end of the week, so that when people go home on Friday, they know they have trainings on Monday. Okay? Anyone with question before I go on? All right, there's also a place to create training notes here. If you want a note to be displayed on the page of the participants, this is where you create the note, the title, the training session that you're creating the notes for. And so everybody who is part of that training session will see the notes on their page, and then you can type in the notes. And this is for short notes. If you want to have a whole manual, this is where we come to upload file or videos. So when we have a video to upload, you can come here and choose the video you want to upload, or you have a file to upload. You just select the training session that you want. So all the participants that have a room in that session, for that session, will see that file on their page, and so it will be under your resources there, and then you see the things uploaded. This is where the facilitator uploads those resources that you need for the training or that you have to see on your page. So when you have manuals, you have guidelines, you upload it here, everybody sees it on their page. Then you want to have announcements or news on the page, and you want everyone to see news on the page, news on announcements, anything new or anything that you have done. Let's say there's an assessment now and you want to share the assessment code, you can do it there and we'll all see it on their page. Now, these things are functionalities that we wanted it to have emails go out. Like once the announcement is there on the page, we want everyone that is for that training session get an email that there's a new announcement on the page, or just get an email about the announcement. But looking at the handover and the way things function in country, a lot of these things that are dependent on other functionalities, your email server, were cut out just so that the system doesn't crash, or you don't start having problems with saying for some reason the email functionalities within the countries, because I've heard some countries say their emails have not been functional for a while, or emails stop sending out. So remove all of those functionalities to make sure that emails are only sent out when you create a new account for activation, and it's just one place that depends on all of these email functionalities. People will need to log in to see what is happening on their page. They won't get an email alert to say something has been sent to your page, something has not been said. The more you have those functionalities that are dependent on IT or on something else, the more you have problems with when something fails, who do you contact? Or when they don't get an email. So everybody's expecting an email for them to log in, and then for some reason it fails and an email is not coming through. Not because the system failed, but because somebody changed the email password, or somebody the email server is down, and then you don't want something else to limit the use of the system. And it was for that reason that when there's an announcement, you don't actually get an email until it is clear that there's actually a dedicated IT person within the countries. And this decision came even before the IT training workshop, and after the IT training workshop last week, it became very clear that the IT support is very limited, and so we try to limit as much as possible the need for IT so that functionalities can go on even when the human resource is not available. Okay, so the announcements will be created from here. Everybody always needs to log in to check their portal or their page to see things. There will be no email notification that you have a new message or anything, just so that we remove that layer of dependence for the sake of continuity. So these are the functionalities that you have under this drop-down menu, training sessions and upload. Does anyone have questions before we go to the assessment and certification part? So do you all have a better understanding? Do I have to repeat anything just for the sake of clarity before we move to the last set of functionalities?
I'm done here, Mildred.
Okay.
So far, Mildred.
All right, thank you. So let's look at the assessment and certification. Now, part of the business requirements or the change that was requested is for us to have things about this assessment more dynamic. And then from my own experience, it is more tedious to wake up in the morning and come and create questions. Let's say you have an assessment and you want to create questions for that assessment. Let's say you want to have 50 questions for a particular training module. Then you have to think of the questions. Sometimes you might not even remember. And so it's easier to have a question pool where you can have hundreds of questions. And then when you want to create a training assessment, you can now pick questions from the pool without having to type. You can say, I want question 1, 5, 10. You look at the questions and see which questions are appropriate or relate to the topic for that training workshop that you want to put there. And this is part of when you create a training package So let's say you have a consultant that creates training package for you. So maybe you want to do a training package for prevention or something, and that person develops these modules and curriculum for that training package. And you can now come in advance and put this into the system, the question pool, and the facilitator is not going to be the one in control of the pool. They only select questions from that pool that relates to the topics that they were supposed to cover. And then you will use that to now see how the participants are able to score in those assessments, just to be informed about the impact of the training, if you need to have more trainings for them to get an understanding of whatever the topic was. So we have this creation of question pool. What the system does is it allows you to enter unlimited number of questions. Before now, what we have was 4 options, A, B, C, D, and you are limited to 4 options. But the changes we made is to make you can have as many options for the answer as possible. So let's just try to create some sample questions to see how we create question pool and see how we use this pool from the question pool to create assessment. So let's say we have topics, and now the reason we have topic and subtopic is in the future, if you want to have reporting for this system to know what topics particularly a particular user or users have lower score in a particular topic, to know that maybe this topic is not well understood. Maybe you have a topic for data entry, they're not entering data correctly, we have to focus on that. Or you want the users to know what topic to go and practice on properly. Is it on entry of clinical evaluation that they are not entering correctly? If you want those reporting later in the future, and that's the reason we have these topics, subtopics, so that when they fail a question, the system will see the topic and subtopic where the failure comes from and be able to give a visualization to say these are the topics where your grade came lower. Okay, so let's say we have this topic called let's say the developer rule, and we'll have a subtopic now. Let's say training workshop, and the question type, there are 2 question type now. Before now we had up to 4 question type: fill in the blank, essay, comprehension, and all of that. They're not used, they're not useful, and so we limit it to what is useful: multiple choice, true or false. So let's say we want a multiple choice and we want to say the question: which of the following is a functionality of a user assigned the developer role? Or which of the following, okay, assign the developer role? And we said the first option is, let's say one functionality here will be create user's account for the patient management and reporting system. Want to add new option, more options, so you want to have, so this automatically be option 1 or option A, and then we'll say create client account. We'll add another option, let's say create configure training workshop. And then say we'll add option again, and we'll say this next option will be create virtual training workshop users account. Okay, so we have 4 options. You can add more options to have 5, and say create surveillance reports. And then we create this question. So we've created a question, we've had all the options added. So you can continue to create questions on the pool to have many questions. Let's add another question. I have 2 questions already. I just added 1 now, 3. So I want to add a fourth question here. So let's say the topic here is screenings and management. What I might do to be able to create reporting for this is to make this a drop-down menu of topics that maybe we'll have a topic, create topics here first. Because when you want to do analysis, you don't want to have free field for the reports to be coming out from. So when you create your topics, it's just like creating all the topics that you have taught. It's going to be straightforward. I'll try to see if I can do it tonight so that we can look at it for tomorrow's training. If not, it will just be part of the training manual and maybe a training video. So we have screenings and management topic. Let's say under this topic, we want to have antenatal, screenings, and then question type, let's say true or false. Let's say a user assigned the screenings and management rule does not need extra permissions to register a pregnancy. All right, so now the answer will be yes or no, true or false. So say true as one option. Ignore my spelling for today, my brain is not getting spellings right. So we'll say true or false like this because the question type is true or false. So it can be true or false, yes or no, 1 or 0, any one you want to do, and then we'll create this. So we'll have 2 questions now. Now take note that we created the question to be added to the pool. We had the answer options, but we don't have the answer and the feedback. So now the next thing is to update questions. You now look at the questions that we have and you want to set answers for them. These are the 2 questions we just created. There is no answer for this question. So what we'll do is to click on the edit button. If you come here to read the question and there is an error, all you can do is either edit it or you delete it if you want to. So we'll come, which of the following is the functionality of a user assigned the developer role? We'll look at the question answer options and we'll say, okay, the correct answer here is to create virtual training workshop users account. So we'll edit here to come here to say the answer is create virtual training workshop users account, and then the feedback. When you release feedback to the end users, this feedback you see here is what will show them the correct answer and the feedback to that question. Okay, so let's look at the feedback here. We'll say the developer role is, let's say the developer is responsible for creating accounts on the virtual training workshop platform only. And then any feedback you want to give, this is where you do it. If the question has an error, this is where you edit it, and the topic or the subtopic, and then you click on update. Now when you come back to that question now, after update is successful, you will now see that it now has an answer here. Then we'll do the same thing for the next one. A user assigned the screenings and management role does not need extra permissions to register pregnancy. We'll put false, and then we'll say all functionalities under the screenings and management role require permission authorization. A user must be assigned the general population screenings, permission to be able to register a pregnancy. Okay, so let's do that as the feedback for this, and then we update. So we have finished with the question. We've set up the questions in the pool. This question does not belong to any assessment. They're just questions on their own. Now we want to create a training assessment. On the left side of the screen, you have assessment ID and access password automatically generated. If you don't like what you see, you can just refresh it to give you new assessment ID access password. Or you can just create the assessment and set the password or the access code to be a number that you can give the participants, but it's generated as alphanumeric like this, so nobody can gain access to the assessment questions before you actually ask them to start, or nobody who is not authorized to take the assessment will have the access code to be able to access the assessment. So this is for next week's training, where we'll look at the assessment and everything when we look at the participant module, and that training for next week, module 2, is for all system users. And so we'll look at all of these access and participants, anything that has to do with participants for next week. But for now, you set the date of access. So I can create this assessment today, and maybe the assessment should be taken in 2 weeks' time. So I put my date of access for 2 weeks' time, so it does not display on the pages of the participants before the date of access. So the date of access is just like the access start date. The assessments here are not timed. There's an assessment that they can start and save. Maybe you want them to take it over a week. So when I release an assessment on Friday, I will tell you that it's due on Monday, on Tuesday. So it will display on the page starting from that Friday, and then the display will now stop on the access end date. So if your assessment should be taken anytime from today, and you want the participants to stop seeing the assessment, it has expired or the deadline is over on 30th, you set the end of access day. So the system will know when to release this assessment and when to withdraw the assessment. So the type of the assessment now, we say we have 3 types: either the certification, we have the pre-assessment, and then we have summative assessment. Now, because of the names, we already know what they mean. We know that the certification assessment is at the end of training. You want to have people write the exam, maybe to issue certificates or to be able to see those who qualify to be master trainers, who understand the system enough to be able to train others, the certification type. Then we have pre-assessment, which is the one that maybe the first thing you do at a training workshop is to take an assessment to see where people are, and then at the end you do a summative assessment to see where they are relative to where they started, so to see if any knowledge has been imparted. So these are the 3 types of assessment. Under the hood, the whole 3 types, there's no difference between how they are displayed, how the participants see them. They see them from different pages, but it only helps you, the facilitator, to know which assessment you have given out for certification, or if you want to have a standard for certain certification questions, or if you want to decide that you want to take one question from each kind of topic that exists for your certification exam, since you want to cover all of the questions or all of the functionalities. So let's say we want to create a certification assessment, and you have to set what you want the score for the assessment to be. Are you going to be grading this out of 50 or out of 100? Now the system uses automatic grading for the assessment, so the system needs to know what the total score for this will be. Is it going to be out of 10, out of 100, out of 50? We need to have an assessment score. And now let's set this assessment score to be 100, for instance, and we want this assessment to be for people who attended, let's use one of our hypothetical training, the technical one, and I'll create assessment. So now we have an assessment created, and this is the assessment ID. We want the assessment to be accessed from 24th to 30th. We have the total points for it. The access status here is unlocked. If you want to do anything with the settings, like you want to change the access code here, let's say I want to make it easier, I'll make it 11111. and maybe the access start date and end is okay. The total points, if I want to change it from 100 to be 200 or 500, or if I want to lock the assessment so nobody can view it, this is where I'll do that. I can edit this to see, okay, so when I send the participants a message that assessment has been released, I have to send this access code 11111. Okay, yes, Lester?
So for example, if you want to do an assessment but you want to give it a grade that the participant must pass, let's say 80% or 70%, can you set it up on this also? I mean, most of the trainings are just for people to learn how to use it, but you'd also want to set a benchmark to give them a little bit of encouragement to try their best to understand. How do you grade it on this thing?
Okay, yeah, so this is automatically graded, right? So all you do is to view grades here, and then you can sort it in ascending order, and then for all those who are below pass mark, you can now tell them that you can now see yourself when you click on view grades for a particular assessment. Nobody has taken this, so we'll not find anything here, but you can now see the student score, which is the score of everybody in ascending order, so the lowest to the highest, and then you see which score is highest and which score is lowest. There is no setting on this system where you can create a pass mark to tell the student you failed or you passed, because I think the purpose of a training assessment is not for pass or failure, but mostly for information, to know what knowledge has been impacted and if somebody has to be retrained again, right? Does that answer your question, Esther? Yeah.
It answered.
Yeah, okay. So when we configure the training assessment, you want to now add questions to this assessment. We've created an assessment. The assessment is blank. There are no questions. You take the assessment ID, you put it below here where you say continue to add in assessment questions to set questions. Now, this has 3 tabs. The first tab is to add questions to the assessment. The second tab is to view the questions that you have added and assign points to each of the questions. The third one is to release that assessment for participants to be able to see it on their page and enter their access code to be able to take the assessment. So now, to add questions to the assessment, you have all the questions in the pool. So you are not going to be typing in questions, but you're going to be selecting. So let's say look at this, and I want this question 1, and I look at this question number 2. I don't want question 2, and I look at question 3, and I say I want this question. So I don't want all the true or false. I only want multiple choice. So I only have 2 of them here. So normally you have hundreds of them if you have a whole question pool. And then I selected these 2, and I add selected question. So now when I add this, that means those 2 questions have been added to my assessment. I only have questions in the pool that I have not added to this assessment yet. Now this is where I think I've gotten questions about this when we did the demo the first time. The questions in the pool are not altered. The questions in the pool are the questions you set in your assessment are a reference of the questions in the pool. You can use the same question. If I come for a new assessment now, let's say for instance, I want to set assessment, create a configure training assessment for a different assessment, let's say this one. I'm going to have the questions in the pool that are not in this assessment. It's not going to affect, like this has the questions here. So because I use the questions for a particular assessment does not stop another person from using the same question in another assessment. So the pool just exists for you to have questions, for you to have unlimited assessment. You can use the same questions multiple times. You can have, but the only thing the pool does is to have these questions, the answers and everything, and for you to come on any new day to create assessment using the questions that exist in the pool. So you can use the questions in the pool for multiple assessments. That you use it in one assessment does not make it unavailable for another assessment. It's still there. As long as it's a new assessment, the system is going to display them for you in the first tab, and only when that question has been added to that current assessment that it will be removed from what you see here. It's not removed from the pool, it's removed from what you can add to that assessment. So we'll go back to the assessment that we were configuring, this one. So we added 2 questions that are multiple choice. We don't want the true or false questions. We come to the second tab to update this. Now this tab is very important, and what we have to do on this tab is to set the point for each question. You can also remove a question. Maybe you are reviewing them and reading them and say, no, I don't want this question. You select this for removal, and then you click update. It takes it back out of the questions for this assessment. It does not remove it from the pool, it just removes it from this assessment. And so let's say we remove this question, for instance. I update this to remove this question. When I come back here, I only have 1 question because I removed 1. When I come to the pool, the question I just removed is now available back in the pool for me to be able to select and add it there if I want it back in the question. Okay, so this now makes it easy for you to have assessment. You can set your questions way ahead of time and have a whole pool of all the questions that you need for the particular training, for you to know that if they can answer all of these questions correctly 80% of the time, then it means that the person understands the system thoroughly. So the question standard depends on how you want to set your questions, what you want to do for your questions. So here we have these questions. We are satisfied with the questions. We want to assign points for the questions. So I have the assessments to be 100%. That's what I set when I created the assessment. When we come here to create and configure assessment, you can see that the total point here is 100. Now this is very important for when we come to set the question point. Let's say I want to set this point here to be 20, and I want these points to be 20. That's 2 questions, and I click update. It will give me the points that I want here, but then here I cannot finalize because it will tell me that I cannot release this assessment because the question point doesn't total the assessment total possible score. Because we set it to 100, the total points must be equal to 100 here. So which means that you have to calculate and make sure that if I have 2 questions, each one has to take 50 marks or one will take 70-30, the total point must equal 100. And then when I update this and I come back to the last tab now, then I'll find a button that says release. Until I click release, that is when this assessment is ready for participants to take the assessment. That is when the participants will see the assessment. So if the participants say they don't see any assessment on their page, it is because the release button was not clicked. Okay, so we have the grade points. You see the assessment here to review one last time before you release this assessment for participants to be able to take them. Okay, and when participant takes the assessment, you can now decide to lock or unlock. When an assessment is locked, this is where we unlock it. You find the assessment ID in the button here and you click unlock. If you want 2 different batches to take it and you want the first batch to finish before the second batch, you can just change the access code so that once you unlock it back, the first batch that took it will not be able to log in to see the same assessment again. Even if they see the assessment, they don't have the access code. So with the access code, you have control over who views. You give them the access code and they'll be able to view the assessment. This functionality of unlock the assessment and view grade, we can only look at it accurately when we look at the participants part in module 2 and participants have taken assessment, and then we can come back here to now see how the grades are calculated and how they are displayed for us to and how we can release the feedback after all the assessment has been taken and people want to know the correct answers and the feedback for those answers. Okay, anybody with question?
That was a lot.
Yeah. All right, so what will happen is tomorrow, Wednesday, is it's going to be a repeat of what we were supposed to have yesterday. Now what I've done here was combine yesterday and today. So tomorrow what I'll do is repeat yesterday and today, and on Thursday I'll repeat it again, and let tomorrow we'll have hands-on. We'll just go over it and have the hands-on practice on your different sites, pilot sites within countries, so you can play around and see how to do these things. Once you do it, it will look a little easier. How to create stuff and all that. Okay?
Yeah, I think the hands-on will work for me.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have question? All right. So this is where this the agenda for today ends. I will try to get the video across as soon as possible so that you can review it. I think nobody registered for afternoon session for today. So there'll be no afternoon repeats for today, but we'll have a repeat tomorrow with the hands-on tomorrow. Okay?
Okay.
So if you have a participant that couldn't make it today, you can inform them to be here tomorrow. It's important to be here tomorrow because the hands-on will actually give you the more insight, and then you can actually ask more questions or you get more clarity to things. All right?
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mildred.
Okay.